Hello, welcome to Petrol Media. I'm your host, Terrence, and today I wanted to discuss the MPC 1000. There's a video that I did, I want to say a little over a year, maybe a year and a half ago. It was at the very beginning of my YouTube journey, and I discussed the MPC 1000, the pros and cons of it, and how useful it is as a machine in 2024. Should you buy it? Should you use it? Or should you just forget about it? Is it worth it in 2024? That video was so well put together, but the problem with the video was I was very inexperienced in the YouTube landscape, and I didn't realize when I was mixing it down that I didn't balance the audio well. And I mean, when you look at people's YouTube journeys, the very beginning is always messy. And there's nothing wrong with that because you're learning the things that work and the things that don't work. And from that experience, I realized that although I'm very good at explaining my points on the items that I know best, I didn't consider how loud the audio was in the background of the video. And that audio was very annoying for a lot of people to listen to. So I do thank those who have watched that video and enjoyed it, but I decided to remake the video. But since that video was so well thought out and I really expressed every single thought I could think of in one shot, I didn't see the point in making a new video on this because I covered everything in that video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up the video and I'm going to add it to this one. And that way the video going forward will be available to all of you to watch. And I think the points that I made in 2024 are still valid in 2025 and probably will still be valid in 2026. Now, I haven't been using this one as much lately, mainly because I've been forcing myself to learn how to use the One Plus really well. We were also in a transitional phase out of California to Texas, and it didn't make sense to have everything out and running all the time. That didn't make any sense. So in that process, I learned a lot about the One Plus, but I didn't forget about this. And I don't want you guys to ever think that I forgot about this. I'm not selling this anytime soon. I've customized it far too much to make it even make sense for me to sell it. But this right here is awesome, and you will be seeing it more on the channel soon. Hello and welcome to Petrol Media, and today we're going to discuss, does it make sense to buy an MPC 1000 today? Now, the 1000 has been instrumental in my setup, and we're going to get into those reasons in a little bit, but it's a pretty powerful machine. It's the closest machine I've ever owned to the 2000 XL. I feel like it is a spiritual successor to the 2000 XL, not in the sense of, the sequencer itself, because the sequencer on the 2000 XL was actually pretty robust, but everything else. The sequencer in the 2000 XL handled 300,000 notes. Now, that's a lot of notes, and you will never hit that number, but it allowed it to be a little bit more detailed, I guess you could say. But again, that's all, hyperbole, I guess you could say, because really most of us are never using it in the manner that you're going to need to use all those notes. So having the 1000 have only 100,000 notes to me is not a bad thing. If anything, it's such a minor thing to really worry about that I wouldn't consider it a big deal. Now, my 1000 tends to live next to the 5000 most of the time. If it's not there, it's usually next to me when I go traveling or whatever. A lot of times it's upstairs inside the house somewhere, because usually once the kids drop, I jump on and, work on something that I've already sampled in or fiddled around with, and then I head off to bed. Or, if I'm inside the house after taking care of some things with the family and, I have a free moment, it's right there. It's the most portable machine I have at the moment. And as much as everybody keeps trying to get me to get a Live 2 or whatever, it's not my cup of tea. I like this thing. Not saying there's anything wrong with those machines, because I am in the market for one, but I'm looking for an X. And, for the most part, what the Live 2 can offer me, I get with the Studio 2 and my touchscreen Dell. So I don't really need that machine right now. I might actually consider picking up one just for my collection, just to have one in my collection, but it's a redundant thing for right now. The X makes more sense, and I'm probably going to pick that up, and I'm just waiting around a little bit, spending a little bit of time. I'm not in a huge rush to pick it up just yet, but I will buy one. It's probably going to be the first new MPC that I've bought. Wow, since the 2000 XL back in 2001. So we have some time. I'm not in a rush to make that massive purchase today. Before we jump in, definitely check out my website, Petrol Media Inc. It's down in the description. I have a bunch of sample kits and packs up there ready for everybody. I'm always adding to it because, again, I've spent about 27 plus years in the music industry, roughly, and I have like tons and tons and tons of sounds just laying around that I'm not going to use anytime soon. And I've been repurposing them and creating kits for everybody. Now, let's get into the actual MPC 1000. Now, my 1000 is a little different from most. There's a gentleman who has a company called soundmod.io. And on the back of it, if you notice, I don't have the normal power supply. Like right over here, it's a USB-C power supply. This unit actually has 2 batteries inside of it that makes it a portable MPC. And I love that about this machine. It gives me about 6 hours on a full charge. I've actually tested it a couple of times and the battery drains all the way down to, it kind of works like an FPV drone battery in a sense. Like you drain down to about 3 volts roughly before it shuts off, and it saves itself that way. But you charge it up to 4.2 volts per cell. I have to do the math again, but the machine, I believe if I'm correct, internally runs on like 20 volts or so. But the batteries do the math series and parallel to get up to that point. Suffice to say, I get 6 hours of time with that setup, and it's been a great mod for me. Like I've taken it on a plane and made a beat on the plane with this thing. And it's really durable because it's a big heavy metal case. That's one of the reasons why I just refuse to buy a Live 2 or anything like that, because I'm not a fan of plastic cases. I have no problems with this thing if it drops in the bag. Of course, if it drops on the outside, it gets dented. I don't want that. But for the most part, I don't have any issues with it. With this machine, unlike the 5000 where I have 2 MIDI ins and 4 MIDI outs, I only have 2 MIDI ins and 2 MIDI outs, but I rarely use it for that because, again, I'm usually just putting the idea together, chopping it up, adding my drums, etc., etc. The inputs and outputs for digital, I have those options, and I have 4 outs if I wanted to do analog. Again, not something I do with this machine. Again, I create the idea here and I move it over to its bigger brother, which is the 5000, and may fiddle around with it here, or I will take it from the 1000 and go directly to the MPC2 software to maybe add some more stuff using the Studio 2 as a controller, and then we go from there. The machine uses compact flash on here. It handles 2 gigs. There is a mod for this where you add a card reader that allows this to handle 16 gigs, but I haven't done it because I haven't had a reason to. There's another guy who did a review on this machine, and he pointed out that he didn't like the idea of adding a hard drive, because you can add a terabyte hard drive to this one as well, just like the 5000. But he didn't do it because he didn't like the idea of having all of his sounds loaded in the machine, and what if he loses the machine? I agree with that idea. So I'd rather just bring the stuff I want to work on and use this as a sketch pad, essentially. A very powerful sketch pad, but a sketch pad nonetheless. And then when I get home, transfer it to the bigger machine or transfer it to my computer, work on the MPC2 software, and then bring that all over to Logic. That's kind of the path. I am excited to see what I can do when I get the X and the MPC3 software. It'll be interesting to see if they're still compatible with these machines, and maybe that'll adjust my journey when it comes to these machines. But for right now, I'm loving this. Let's turn it on. So with the mod, there's a couple of things that comes with it. For starters, I have JJOS 3.16 installed. That is the free version of JJOS. And I don't know if you could see it from here, but we'll zoom in and check. But the free version of JJOS adds a couple of, interesting features that have been very helpful. Like, for example, it adds a proper update to the step edit and a couple of sampling features that have been really cool to get used to. I'm going to look at buying the full version of JJOS. I haven't done it yet. just because the free version has been very useful and has done exactly what I needed to do for the most part. But overall, I'm probably going to do that at some point in the near future, probably really soon. I'm looking forward to trying out the full version JJOS. Now, with this machine, you have, with the mod, a light where the numeric button, the numeric button still works, but he added a light that actually tells you when the battery's dying. When this gets down to yellow is usually when I decide to charge it, but if it gets down into the red, usually you have about 2 or 3 minutes and it starts to blink to let you know, hey, you need to plug me in to charge me. And that's actually pretty cool. I actually was at a session working on something and not paying attention, and the light started blinking and I was like, oh, okay. So I went and got my charger and plugged it up. In my case, I'm just using an Apple charger from a MacBook Air with a USB-C connector. Charges it perfectly fine, but you can use any USB-C charger that matches the output. I forgot what the output setting was, but the one that's 61 watts for the Apple works. Anything too low, it doesn't charge it at all. It just won't do it. And you need something a little bit more robust. The gentleman who made the sound mod update for this added in contingencies. The control board actually will limit how much goes in. I'm just saying you don't want to put like a 200 watt charger on here. That would just be stupid. That's just asking to destroy your machine anyway. So don't do that. So in here, this one, we're going to start again, just like the other one. We're going to go to load and we're going to go down to one of my sessions. Let's find a session real quick. And this one is really fast. Let's go into this one. And I don't remember what this was, but we're going to try loading it. Let's just try it out and see what it sounds like. And the 1000 loads really, really fast. I mean, obviously, if the samples are longer, it's going to take a little bit more time, but it's pretty quick. And let me go back real quick to here. And I'm just going to make sure by loading the sequence. Sometimes I've noticed it kind of doesn't load it, but all right, so let's check this out. All right, so it's loaded. This is old reliable, essentially. The 1000 is a rock solid machine. Now, going back through some of the things, if I go to record on here, if I go to record on here, I have a lot of storage space for this machine. This machine currently for the recorder has the 128 megabyte RAM expansion. That gives me, I think I'm correct, about 30 minutes of sample time, which is more than enough. I think if I'm correct on the 5000, I get somewhere between 60 minutes to like almost an hour and a half, depending on how I use the sampler. On the 1000, I get about 30 minutes. I can double that if I go mono, but I don't have a reason to do any of that. So overall, sampler is pretty solid. The trim on here, let's go back to the one with the first sample. If I go to chop, it automatically picks 16. I can change this. This is the JJOS power versus the 5000. I can tell it, no, that's too many samples. Let me chop it up into, 12 or 11, and it automatically divides, shows you the divide. It's like, hey, let's just move it around one time. This is missing from the 5000, but it's such a cool little feature. The JJOS also gives you the auto chop option, and right now it's saying the sample is too big because it's just too big of a sample to really chop up this way. But if I use a smaller sample, let's get out of here real quick. Let's go back to cancel. We're gonna go back, and it's non-destructive. That's the other thing that's really cool. Now, the 5000 also has non-destructive chopping, but if you're in this main screen like this and if I hit edit and I chop, obviously it's permanent. Same thing with the 5000. But let's find a smaller sample. So I'm gonna use this one. So I'm gonna hit chop, and it's, again, goes back to divide into 16. And now let's say I want to change this. I go back to slice. I can change this from 16 slices down to 4 to 2, whatever, however many I want to actually have. If I go to auto slice, it's going to ask me In auto, how many slices do I want? And I can literally do it this way, where as I decide to level, it just automatically tells me what they're gonna be. I usually use manual though, because manual just makes more sense. So let's say I do 4 slices, right? I'm gonna go down to 4. Just to have, or I'll go down to 4. Okay, so we have 4 regions, right? And hit enter. So now I have this here. So let's say I go to region 1, region 2, region 3, right? Different sections. Let's say I want to take these out, just like I did on the 5,000. So I'll say edit and say do it. So now it's taking it out. So I go to region 2 and I go edit and I say do it. It stays in region 2. That speeds up your time. And you go to the next region, you say do it again, edit, do it. It's already made the slices and it stays in the section. That speeds up your trim time and your chopping time and all those different things that you're doing here. I could also in here say, you know what? I want to divide. I want to add a divide. I can divide that slice one more time and create another section. Or, you know, I want to divide that one. And then you can manipulate this however you choose. And again, like I was saying, you can go fast, you can go really fast, you can go really slow. These are the 2 things the 5,000 doesn't have that the 1,000 and 2,500 have with JJOS. That makes it super, super powerful. Now, the other side of this is when I go to program. So now let's say I go to program and I'm just going to pick way over here where there's nothing on these pads on pad bank D. And I go down and I pick a sample. So I'm going to go all the way to the end of the samples and let's pick that pad, right? Where is it? Full level. Let's pick pad 1. Sorry, let's pick pad 13. So we're going to go all the way to the end of the sample list. So I picked the brass, right, that I chopped, right? Let's say I go to the next pad. It doesn't go to the next one. Now that's, again, going back to my video on the 5,000, the pros and cons of it, the 5,000 automatically goes, oh, you were using this brass and you want the, obviously you're probably gonna want to go to the next chop. It's not there. I have to scroll all the way over to the next chop. If I go to the next chop, it's not there. I got to scroll all the way. Now, this is not a big issue. It's a minor thing. It's a tedious thing. It's almost like what's missing on the 1,000 is on the 5,000. What's missing on the 5,000 is on the 1,000. If this feature was there on the 5,000, I would tell you absolutely buy the 5,000, 100%. But the 1,000, this is like the only problem I have with the 1,000. Literally the only problem I have with the 1,000. And it's, again, such a minor thing. Now, in programs, I can create new programs, create a new program, same as the other one. So I can add more to the pad. So even though I have the 4 pad banks, I can have a bunch of different programs, different pads. Again, we're in bank D, the samples aren't there. If I go back to program 1, the samples are now there. So that is a cool little feature for this machine. The rest of the features, I'm not going to go too much into detail because, again, you guys have seen these videos so many times from so many different people. They've all covered it. So there's no point to me going all deep into it. The effects I will go into though. On the 1,000, you only have 2 effects banks, and each effects bank can only have 1 effect on it. So for the 1,000, let's say if I wanted to go in here, you don't get the sync effects. You just don't get those. That's with the 5,000. With this, it's just the regular stuff, but you still get a lot of stuff. You got a bit grunger, 4-band EQ, compressor, phase shifter, tremolo, flying pan, reverb. That's it. That's your whole feature set. And that's a lot. That's still a lot for this machine. The 2000 XL doesn't even have this. So that's why, one of the reasons why I said this thing kicks the 2000 XL's ass. It just does, because it has more features, especially when it comes to the effects section, especially when you add JJOS into the equation. It just becomes a monster, right? Then it's a mini monster. You know what I mean? It loads faster. It's just a clear, better choice for starting when it comes to the old machine. And as much as I love the 2000 XL, I had to go down the road of getting the 1000 over 2000 XL because of that. Also, because of the fact that it's compact flash, because this generation of machines was a predecessor to the MPC software that went into the Renaissance, and then into the MPC2 software that went into all of the machines that you see today, this is compatible with that 100%. So the effects and everything that I set here transfer to the software. The effects that I set on the 5000 transfer to the software. So those two things makes this a great proposition when it comes to making that transition from old hardware to new hardware. The rest of the stuff on this machine, again, like I said, so many people have already covered it. It's just rock solid. Like, I have never had a problem with the 1000, especially the black version. The blue version, the first generation of this machine, I had a ton of problems with, but it was mainly because the pads were terrible. But if you got the blue one with the pad conversion, someone already did the pad conversion, or if you bought it and decided to do the pad conversion yourself, that makes this machine amazing. So the blue one is still not bad. It's literally just the pads. The black ones are almost guaranteed to be the version B of the machine, the version 2, where it's the pad sheet instead. You want to check that though, because some people have bought, modifications, and they will tell you it's a black machine when in reality it's the original one with the original pads. It's really hard to tell. You can't see it from here. You literally have to take it apart, or maybe even if you know the serial number series, you could probably check it that way. But again, that's something that's hard to tell from just looking at the machine. Another thing that's kind of cool about this, and I haven't tried this with the Q links, there's a way to make the Q links behave like a scratch fader. So if we go into mode, and I haven't tried this yet, I have to go and figure out how it works. But supposedly you can get the Q links to do all sorts of little funky tricks. But I haven't had a reason to go and dig into it really deep. But you can assign it to different things and fiddle around with it. On the 2000 XL, I used to use it to actually change the pitch. This is when I didn't know what I was doing. And because I was a DJ, it made sense to me to use it that way. So I actually used to be banging on a pad that was connected to the Q link, and then just pitching up and down while I'm making the beat. And I would get into the habit of hitting the right notch to make it work. Also, these faders really feel good. So it makes sense why people want to use them as scratch faders. The question becomes, do you buy a 1000 in 2024 going into 2025? I would say that the answer to that is yes, if you're trying to get into using the older samplers. The 1000 is a great space to jump into the older machines. It is not so old that there's only one way to get the audio off of the machine. So let's say you're a producer who's just getting into, or beat maker just getting into using the older samplers, and you want to be able to get the audio off of the machine. And I think I haven't tried it with the MPC Beat. I have to try that with the MPC Beat software, because I have that software. I just haven't loaded and checked it. I should probably check that. You know what? Stand by. Okay, so on my machine here, I have the MPC2 software and the MPC Beats software. So we're going to open MPC Beats. MPC Beats is the free version of the MPC that AKAI offers to you. It has a lot of the features of the MPCs, but it's supposed to be scaled down. I haven't really dove into it too much just because I haven't had a reason to do so. So we're going to get past these menus real quick, and we're going to just open an empty session. So it looks just like the MPC. There we go. There's some noise. Okay, so maybe with the MPC Beats, you can actually save, or I shouldn't say save, access the files from here. So let me just check real quick with exporting. Yeah, okay. So it allows you to export the 1000, 2500, and the 5,000 sequences. So you should, in theory, be able to use the MPC beats to access the older MPC stuff. Okay, so now that we've checked the MPC Beats software to see if that works, I can answer that question with a lot more confidence. If you're looking to buy an MPC 1000 in 2024, 2025, I would recommend it. And the reason I would recommend it is because, again, it's a gateway into the older MPCs. It has the most features of a older MPC outside of the 2500, thanks to JJOS. You have access to JJOS. If you spend a few dollars and get the OS version 2 or 3 of JJOS, you get all the extra features. Honestly, it makes it a little bit more powerful than the 5000 at that point. And if you have the MPC Beats software, which is free, you now have the ability to transfer files from the hardware to the software via compact flash, and you wouldn't need to use the outputs to record anything. So now, this makes it a much more favorable option for you to use as an external device. If you have the MPC Beats software or the MPC2 software, you can go back and forth between the machines. That's great about it too. Now, if you want to record anything out of it, you can do it stereo, or you can use the 4 outs. You technically can do 6 outs with that machine. And a lot of people don't realize that, because even with the 5000 or anything that has the 8 out board, you can do 10 outs if you're savvy enough, because you could set stuff to stereo, one to left, one to right, and then you have the other 8 outs, right? You could do the same thing with the 1000. You can do individual outs and then turn the stereos into just left and right, and now you have 6 outputs. I've done that a couple of times. That's the workaround to get 6 out versus 4 out with the machine. But again, now that you have the MPC2 or the MPC Beats software, I should say, you have a free version of how to copy the data using the compact flash or using the USB outs. I wouldn't use the USB out because it's USB 1.1. That's the probably other negative, because that takes forever to transfer things. I would just pull the compact flash and have a compact flash reader and call it a day. That's probably the fastest way to do that. It has tons of extra features that are great for just a general user who wants to get used to that workflow, especially with the 2000 XL and the 2000. It has most of those same features. The only difference I think with the 2000 is you have to chop via numbers, I believe. You didn't chop via visual. Somebody quote me on that, because I'm not sure, because I've never had a regular 2000. I've always had the 2000 XL. And that's kind of it. It is 16-bit 44K. It is 16-bit 441K for the sample rate and bit depth. Same thing for the 5000. That's really not a big issue. I know people like to make it a huge issue. It's not a big issue, because in all honesty, most production, you're gonna make those changes later in the DAW. So if you're doing, here's where it matters. If you're making music for cinema, right? If you're working on music for cinema, which I do work on some stuff for cinematic stuff, it will matter there, because DVDs, which some people still buy them, Blu-rays, some people still buy them, and just having that audio quality for film, you're gonna want it to be as high as humanly possible. You're gonna want 24-bit, you're gonna want 32-bit, you're gonna want 96K, you're gonna want 192K. You're gonna want that. You're gonna need that. You're gonna need that. And at that point, you're not using an MPC to do that. And there's workarounds for that. I've done stuff for cinema where I've done some of the drums on the MPC 5000 and the 1000, and that's 16-bit, drop it in Logic, and then I change the sample rates and upscale stuff. When you're going in that way, you want to keep things in some kind of congruency. So if you're having like 44.1, you want to go up to 88.2. That translation is easy math for the software, and it's not going to sound weird. But if you have to do 96K, then you just have to do some kind of funky stuff, or 192 to make it all work. And at that point, you might as well just go ahead and just do everything in the DAW and call it a day. So I think that's the only case where it's not in your favor to start in one of these older samplers. But for hip hop production, pop production, working with artists, things for social media, the 1000 has it handled. That's why it's so popular. It's probably, I would say it's the second most popular machine that Akai has ever made when it comes to samplers, because the most they've ever sold was the 2000 XL. The 2000 XL sold the most units, period. As much as everybody's like, oh, the 4000, the 4000, the reality is the 4000 was such an over-the-top machine for your average user that most people didn't use it, and it was such a big machine and such a heavy machine that it just stayed in whatever studio it was in. So once it was in place, that was it. That was it. It was there. You're not moving it again. The 1000 and 2500 could travel with you. 2500 is a little bit heavier, but you could travel with it, take it to studios, take it to different places. And if you have the Beats software, again, makes it a compelling argument to have both. It gives you the opportunity to go into the older realm for certain things and then jump into the new realm for other things. So I think from that pairing, because that's how I went about it, I have the Studio 2 right there. That goes with me. And the other one goes with me. The 1000 goes with me. And that works well for me. So yes, I would highly recommend if you really wanted to get into it, because the price is reasonable. It's the most customizable MPC because there's so many pieces for it out there between MPC stuff and other sites. You can find a ton of stuff for modifications for it. So yeah, I know this is kind of long-winded and I'm just going too deep into it for no reason, but I think it's a great machine to have just to experience the older machines. And then if you decide to go further, then you look at the 2000 XL, or you look at the 2000 or the 3000 or the 60. You know, I look at it as a gateway tool. The 1000 is a gateway tool into things you probably shouldn't really be doing at this point, but you're going to do it anyway. So I recommend it. That's all I have to say on it. Like, share, subscribe, and join me next time. I'll catch you later.